Most attackers do not want to be discovered, and they use several attack methods to remain in the shadows when attempting to compromise the network. So let's cover some of these attack methods. First one that actually I want to cover is the first step that most of the time attackers actually carry out, which is the reconnaissance phase. This is actually used to find information about the network and the victim. There are two types of reconnaissance, passive and active. Passive is actually studying the user behaviors, social medias, studying information, things like the background of the corporation, the officers of the corporations, looking for information that can be useful for an attack in LinkedIn and other social media sites such as Twitter. An active scan or an active reconnaissance is actually the actual scan of the network to find out which IP addresses are responding or are available or exposed to the internet or to even the internal network, and further scans to see other things like what ports are open and what vulnerabilities are present in specific systems on the network. This again is usually the first step taken to discover what is in the network and determine the potential vulnerabilities, then to exploit that and carry out an attack. I mentioned social engineering before. Social engineering targets the weakest link, what we call the weakest link, which is the user. If an attacker can get the user to reveal sensitive information, it's way easier than carrying out a sophisticated attack, even creating malware to exploit a specific vulnerability in their environment. There are several examples of social engineering methods. Here I'm highlighting the two most common. One is phishing, which is actually presenting a link that looks like from a valid trusted resource to a user and fooling that user to click that link, and then potentially do things like prompting the user for confidential information like username and passwords, or fooling the user to actually download specific software or what we call malware, and then of course compromising the user's PC. The other example is farming, and it's basically used to direct a customer's URL from a valid resource to a malicious one that could be made to appear as valid. So for example, the user can be fooled to actually visit, let's say, a bank's website, a social media website, things like Facebook or Twitter, and then fooled to actually put their username and password, extract confidential information from the user, and of course using that information to carry out the attack. The next one is privilege escalations attacks. This is when the attacker tries to obtain a greater level of access of a system or a device. An example is if an attacker gains user mode in a router, then uses a brute force attack against the router to determine the enable secret for privilege level 15 access. So in other words, an attacker that actually has some access to a specific system and then elevating their privileges to actually obtain more sensitive information or to manipulate the device. Other examples are backdoors, which are applications that can be installed to allow future access or collect information to use in further attacks. Many backdoors are installed by users clicking malicious attachments or files, and also results things like viruses or specific malware. One of the most devastating actions available to an attacker is the ability to execute code within a device. Code execution definitely can impact confidentiality, integrity, or availability of the device. Another example of an attack is a man-in-the-middle attack, and we actually covered this earlier in the previous lesson, but this is whenever an attacker actually places themselves in line between the two devices or two users that are communicating between them and steal that information. And again, one of the things that we want to actually highlight that this can happen at layer 2 or at layer 3. The main purpose, of course, is to steal information, eavesdrop the conversation, and for the attacker to see all the traffic. Let's go over what is a distributed denial of service attack, or DDoS. A DDoS is when numerous, and in some cases hundreds or thousands of systems, send tons of traffic to a victim, in this case, example.org. This produces a denial of service condition where legitimate users cannot access the site. There are different types of denial of service attacks, and this will be covered in lesson 2. So what is a botnet? A botnet is a network of private computers that are infected with malicious software or malware and controlled as a group without the owner's knowledge, and most definitely to perform malicious activities. These activities can range from sending spam, carrying out a distributed denial of service attacks, or many other things. The word botnet is a combination of the words robot and network. And the bots are controlled by a command and control server, otherwise known as the CNC. And historically, the CNC communication was done over the Internet Relay Chat, or IRC, communication. But nowadays, this actually can be done over encrypted channels such as TLS, SSH, or even IPsec tunnels. We have also seen command and control communication being done via social media sites such as Twitter. So again, the actual bots themselves, or the infected machines, are controlled by a CNC, so the bad actor will actually send instructions to each of the bots to actually carry out a specific attack, or sending spam, or of course steal information from a victim.